All right, guys, so exciting topic. So what's the one thing that great agents can never have enough of? Listings, right? Because when you have the listings, the buyers will find you. All right, so we're going to talk about how to get listings in a lower inventory market. But then we also want to jump into, panel, how do you create value so that you can earn the commission you deserve? So we should have our little disclaimer here that we're not price fixing. Commission is negotiable by law. However, that doesn't change the fact that you guys have the right to earn what you feel you deserve to earn. So I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. You guys already met me earlier, so we won't bore you with that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, sir.
John Dovenbarger with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Innovative Real Estate in Denver. I'm a managing broker, but I do produce. So I manage our southern region in Denver. What was the other question?
That's good. Okay. Maybe the price point in your market, because Denver's a little higher.
Our average price point is $530,000. Average commission is about $14,000.
Very competitive market.
Low inventory, very competitive, multiple bids. Price average listing goes about 3% above list price. So.
Okay, awesome. I'm Victor Vaca. I'm a coach, executive leadership coach with Debbie DeGrote's Excellium, and I manage some pretty incredible teams. Probably 75% of my clientele is Berkshire Hathaway, and I work with teams, several of which my clients are here, which is awesome to see, but I work with teams all over the country, different price points, different markets, of course, and really just want to, my representation here is try to just give a collective whole of being able to see it from one vantage point, and I will do what I can to provide that for you in terms of what we do to help our team generate listings.
Deb Cizek, right here. Is this working?
Yes,
I have a
just
pretty
have
loud
to hold
voice.
it really very, very close. Very close.
Deb Cizek, and I work right here on the main floor of this office.
My name is Chuck MacPhee. I'm out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have been a team of 2 for the last several years. Just added 2 more guys this year, so there's 4 of us now, and we do about 100 to 130 transactions a year.
Okay. All right. So let's start off with finding inventory in a low inventory market. So you said you had at least 10 active listings. John, how many active do you typically carry right now?
I have 32 listings, 28 active right now.
Wow. Now, are they all residential?
No.
Okay.
So I do commercial real estate as well. So, which is also getting to be a low inventory in Denver.
Okay. So what's your best strategy?
CMAs, that's how I get my listings. So I build relationships with banks, divorce attorneys, insurance agents, and I do CMAs and do not do them for free. Charge for them. Whenever you bring value, you deserve to be paid. So I charge $125 for a residential CMA, which takes me about 15 minutes to do. I have a format that looks very much like similar to an appraisal. It's about 5 pages. Attach your credentials, your resume and your license, an invoice because you want to get paid, your actual CMA, and then I do a cover letter. I charge $275 for a commercial CMA. Unless I do a 2 approach, then it's $500. And so I do probably $3,000 a month just in CMAs, but I get a ton of deals from it.
So how do you market yourself to do those? Do you call them? Do you email? Do you mail to them and say, I'm here, qualified, this is the service I provide?
Well, a little bit of a confession. I'm a refugee banker.
Oh, okay.
So I know a lot of bankers in town.
Okay.
So they know I understand their world, so they just naturally give me the business.
Okay.
But I think it's something anybody can do. And so your chamber leads groups, your networking, can't even think of the name of the networking groups, but get to know your bankers and do those. They're going to order them from you when they do a home equity line of credit, when they do a loan, or if they've got a loan in trouble, which is the ones you really want to do, because they're eventually going to convince that person they need to sell that house. And obviously, you did the CMA; they're going to steer that business to you.
Okay, great tip. So Victor, now obviously you're coaching some of our very best clients at Excellium. Probably about 60% are teams and 40% broker owners, managers, leaders. What are you seeing if you had to pick 2 or 3 of the best sources? Their go-to. Doesn't necessarily have to be something that's out of the box. Just what are you seeing as their primary feeder of listing inventory?
Got it. Okay. Great question. So one of the things that I do first is go back and see what works for them. Where have they gotten success in business in the past? Because that's probably going to be the quickest path to them generating more business. A lot of times it's a neglected SOI. For example, they just haven't been in contact with people in years. They're embarrassed about making a call to somebody they sold a home to 7 years ago. So partly it's a discovery process of what the strengths of that particular agent are, what markets they work, and then weaving those together into a plan that they can follow. But to answer your question, it could be your SOI and past clients. That's certainly one of the places. Higher end expired listings are another place. There's less competition there as well, just because the higher you go up in price, a lot of agents get intimidated by that. So, and I work with some pretty great agents, so they're not as intimidated by it. So it's kind of a nice ability to make that lateral or that vertical move up. Another place they can go is for sale by owners, and depending on the market, right? It may be higher or less, but you may have to expand your market. For the list, let me go back on the expireds too. You might have to go back like a year and a half, because maybe right now there's only 3 or 4 or 5 of these coming up in a short period of time. So you may have to go back a ways. Now, some of my clients use dialers, for example, so they'll use like a Vulcan 7, they'll go back, and then they'll just be on the phone 2 hours a day. When somebody answers, they talk to about 6 people per hour, and the goal is to set a listing appointment a day with that.
So Deb, you were told to tell a story.
Oh, I'm not going to tell that story now.
Oh, okay,
I'll tell
got
it at
it.
the end. I promise.
Okay,
I promise
good.
I'll tell it at the
But
end.
I do know you are a prospector. And of course, you and I both grew up in the world of prospecting. I used to do 5 hours a day. You probably the same. And I'm not saying that's the way everyone should do it, but it has worked really well for you. And I think people are surprised to hear you still get on the phone and make those calls. So talk a little bit about that, if you would.
I think probably the most important thing in a low inventory market is you have to have a buyer. Find a buyer. We all have buyers in a low inventory market. Find a buyer and tell that buyer, I will do whatever it takes to find a home for you. And then do it. And if that means door knocking, you go knock on doors. And people are pretty surprised when you show up, and it doesn't matter what price range that is. If that's $1 million home, or that's a $250,000, or that's a $100,000 home, you knock on doors and you say, I have a client that is looking for this, this, and this. It appears from the outside that that is what your home might be. Is there any way you would consider selling? And what do they almost always say in a low inventory market? They're not going to sell because they have no place to go. So you just demonstrated to them what you're going to do for them if they do consider selling. Say, I'll do the exact same thing that I'm doing for the Smiths. I'll do that for you. Would you consider at least letting us look at your home?
I'm glad you mentioned door knocking
They'll always
in the higher end, because it works. Now, granted, there are some higher end, in Beverly Hills, a $25 million estate.
Yeah, don't
That's
climb
not
over
gonna
security
work,
fences
right? You might get thrown out. But it does work. And the I have a buyer, let's think about this together for a moment, guys. What better compliment to a homeowner than I have someone waiting to buy your home? Now, obviously, they could say, well, this might be a marketing gimmick, and that's why Deb said you need to have a real buyer. It doesn't have to be your own, though. Look at all of you guys here in the room. You could say, hey, I'm going door knocking in this area. Who has a buyer? Tell me a little bit about them so I can go out with a legitimate story. Why do they like that? Well, they can avoid MLS, which they might think in their mind would save them commission, right? Which of course it won't, but
No.
they don't know that yet. And the hassle, especially in the higher end. Some of them are very, very private, and they don't want that. So I'm actually finding for our coaching clients, that's one of the best ways. The I have a buyer letters and the I have a buyer prospecting, they may at least get a response and an opportunity.
I will say
So-
most, I said in the luxury home thing, most of my business comes from stuff that's not currently in MLS.
So Chuck, it seems like you guys do lots of stuff, right? And you were sharing with me at the break some out of the box, as I said, not for you, but maybe for some of the people in the room. So can you talk about maybe 2 or 3 more unusual methods?
Sure. So much like Deb, I do a lot of prospecting, so I kind of cut my teeth on expireds and for sale by owner, how I kind of got started. But I was struggling with the time commitment. The only way that I felt like I could go on more appointments was to spend more time prospecting. And so I actually picked up a tidbit in a very similar conference like this a few years ago about sly broadcasting. And I'm sitting here listening to this idea that I can deliver voicemails to people's inboxes on their phone in a matter of seconds. And my whole thing, and I have a coach that kind of coaches me on some of this stuff, is follow-up's the key. In order to convert the expireds, you have to be following up every other day. And I'm like, well, I don't have enough time in the day to manage my team, manage my listings. I carry about 40 to 50 listings at a time. We have 37 properties under contract. Like, there's no way I can get that time. So sly broadcasting, to me, has saved me a tremendous amount of time and has converted I can't even tell you how great it's been for me. I would spend an hour, 2 hours on the phone dialing, leaving the same voicemail over and over and over. Now I hit one button, it goes out to 500 people at a time. More than that is mind-blowing because your phone will absolutely explode. But I get probably 50 to 75 to 100 callbacks a day. And I'm talking to the live parties that I really actually wanted to talk to anyways. So it's saving me so much more time. And so that's really allowed us to pick up some additional listings. We've done what Victor said as far as going back and looking back. Pretty much like 2012, 2013 in our market was a pretty down market, and people have no idea the value appreciation that they've incurred in their homes. And so we do some scrubbing on those to make sure they haven't relisted or sold, but we'll go back to those old expireds as well in that same sly broadcasting methodology, and it works tremendously well to get the appointment.
You know, I hear a lot of agents say, I don't think for sale by owners are great to work because they're able to get their own home sold. But it sounds like you do get a significant amount of business from for sale by owners.
We convert them. The for sale by owners are easy to get an appointment. So for my new guys, we focus strictly on for sale by owners for them because it's easy to get an appointment. It's easy to practice. The name of the game for them, it seems like, is the follow-up. So there are tons of studies out there. You'll hear the different stats that most for sale by owners are going to list. They're going to do that on the 61st day that they've been trying this themselves. So you may not get it on that initial appointment. All we're trying to do on that initial appointment is show value. Hey, here guys, here's how to sell it yourself. You probably can sell it yourself, but good luck getting it closed because inspection-related items, appraisals, yada, yada, yada. And so we just try to be the value, kind of showing hey, here's what we know. Here's what's going to help you. And a lot of times it comes back to us, hey, you guys were the only ones that were super helpful. Let's get it going.
So speaking of follow-up, do you track how many follow-up attempts on average it takes to convert the for sale by owner?
We do. It's all over the board, though. Some of them, they'll last a week, and it's on our second or third call, and they're ready to go. I mean, most of them, it's that 90-day, 60 to 90-day. They're starting to freak out. My house hasn't sold. Why? And then we kind of come back in the picture.
Yeah, I've been watching that with our client base, guys, and it seems to be around 5. Like face-to-face, not that you should settle for that because if you can get it on the first time, great, but that face-to-face and then 3 or 4 additional follow-ups, maybe another meeting, but don't be alarmed if it takes 5 and you're going to do them fairly aggressively in a short period of time.
One other thing that we do that's been very successful for us is around the social media stuff and the targeted Facebook ads. So if you're familiar with that, and I know there's some roundtable discussions around that, but the way that you can set up those the demographics demographics and the criteria, you can put in there that people are already a homeowner. So all of those leads that come in are more than likely going to have to sell their house in order to buy the home that they're looking at. So that's been a really good resource for us is the way we target our Facebook ads. We know they own a home.
Right.
What are they doing with that home to move on to the next one?
And I think when you're doing your open house targeted Facebook ads, that's a good thing to remember, that you would want to set your targets to attract people who own a home also, right? Not just buyers. So, okay, so as we're running through the list here, probably ideas are flowing through your mind, things you'd like to share. John, anything that you are thinking that they might like to know, maybe even prospecting? Tell me a little bit about that. Do you proactively make calls every day, and if so, how many?
I do. I kind of embrace the ninja selling.
Okay.
So we try to do 10 a day, sphere calls. I don't ever get 10 a day. I'm lucky if I get 5 because I'm a manager.
Okay.
It's a life-sucking siege. And I'm willing to share my CMA format if anybody'd like to see it.
Okay.
Just send me an email to John, John, at thedreamhometeam.com. And then there's a disclaimer at the bottom of my cover letter. You have to do that if you do a CMA for a bank. So make sure that's on there. Yeah. I'll just send you a couple that I've done recently.
So your bank connections, you already know them. Do you prospect them in some type of regular plan? How do you stay top of mind? Because I'm sure other agents might be prospecting them as well.
Well, I think that, you combine calls face-to-face and, written correspondence with them. So there is a plan. I actually have a person that helps me with that.
Okay.
And then happy hour is a big one.
Well, yes. Wine and dine.
Yeah.
Yes, wine and dine. But the past clients, you get a lot of, you do get a lot of repeat business.
Yeah. I guess I'm an old guy, so I answer the phone a lot.
Okay.
Because you just maintain relationships over the years, and then you get those calls. So, I've been in business since 1984 in Denver, so I've developed a lot of long-term relationships. And when you get to that point, you can just answer the phone
Right.
and get leads. So,
But see, then answering...
But the key is building that over the course of
Yes.
your career so that it becomes that. But you still have to be active in your marketing because you want to maintain those relationships, and then you also want to continue to build because relationships fall out at times.
So, Victor, we were talking in the earlier session about managing lead pipelines, and I know we had a lot of people with us, so I don't want to be, super repetitive, but as you all know, now that they can go online earlier and begin their search in their underwear with a beer at their computer at night, they do start early and way beyond when they're ready and nurturing that relationship. And you shared a few stats in there about how many contacts, how many months. Maybe you can review that with them again.
You got it. Well, that's a little bit more on lead follow-up, but we'll
Microphone.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you couldn't hear
Yeah,
me.
it is, but
little bit more-
if they work so hard to get the lead and we
Absolutely.
don't follow up, 70% of your listings will typically come from your follow-up.
Yeah, so
right?
let me share with anybody, I'm not sure if somebody may be familiar with this, but let me share this with you. So there's an MIT study done, and this study reflected, when I was the National Vice President of Lending Tree, we were doing 10,000 leads a month, we were distributing to 25 markets. And we tracked, we had waterfall metrics for waterfall metrics. Sorry, I talk with my hands. Waterfall metrics for waterfall metrics, and this study said the same thing. It was 100,000 unique visitors. They studied over a three-year period and made 100,000 phone calls. And so what they did and tracked was that when you talk to somebody 6 times, you're going to get a hold of that person 92% of the time. Now, the average person, super busy agents, super successful agents, like people that are here, one of the top things we find is time management is a real struggle, and we don't have the time to follow up multiple times. So part of what we do is help you create a structure and a strategy by which you can make these calls. So you do have either a CRM, even if it's as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't have a CRM, I mean, your company does, so I guess you do have a CRM. I think it's called the agent resource. So I would highly advise that. But worst case scenario, an Excel spreadsheet where you have all of the different buckets, right? So if there's expires, like you got your top 3 places you're going to go. If you're going to call an expired, have an expired bucket, and you're going to have a follow-up protocol inside of that expired bucket where you're going to make sure you make at least those 6 calls, at least those 6 texts, at least those 6 emails, and hit them up on social media as well. That's a very effective strategy, as you guys have been talking about in the last several sessions. So handwritten notes as well, but those are really, like Debbie said, for really post-meeting follow-ups, things like that. But then have your next category, what's the next target market you're going to have? Your SOI. So do we have a plan and a system in place for how often we're going to touch them? So if we're going to do the 555, are we at least calling our agent, are we at least calling everybody at least quarterly, our top people? Are we giving at least a marketing report a quarter? At least, right? There's some great other ideas that a lot of my clients do that will put, like, for example, you can have, and you actually have a resource in your company here, but you can actually have, for every listing that comes on the market that's sold, you can have an email go out. Your MLS can set that up as well in most cases. And so it looks like you're the one selling all these homes. So it gives you a lot to talk about when you actually do follow up with a phone call. But getting to that phone call is key. Also, the slide broadcast and the text platform. As we just heard, it's going out to 500 people or 200 people or whoever it might be, but it's super time saving. And so what happens is when you always close with a question mark at the end of a text, you're going to get a much higher response rate. So once you close with, and you probably close with a question mark, I'm guessing, right? Exactly. And you close with that question mark, then all of a sudden you get 5, 10, 15, maybe, depending on the size of the people or the size of the database, but blow up and inquire and want to have lunch with you, want to talk to you, want to follow up with you. But having a system is critical, because if you just have a list of names and you call them 1 time or 2 times, you're off to the races with something else. You just wasted all that time. And I'll just give you one thing I said to one client. He said he makes about $600 a year. Good producer, not a rock star, but a good producer. He said, I'm 61 years old. I'm not doing that. I'm not a stalker. And I said, okay, Bill, here's the deal, man. How many times do you follow up with these people? He goes, 2. And if they don't get it after 2, too bad for them, because I got their name. They got my name and email. I said, I got an idea. So you can do it this way. You can call 2 people and not talk to them. Call 2 more and not talk to them either. Then call 2 more and still not talk to them and just wasted your time. Or you call 1 person 6 times and talk to 9 out of 10. What's a better way to do it? And it's proving to be very effective for him. So anyway, yes.
So time block for your follow-up. We all believe in prospecting up here, and yet if you're going to choose one or the other, because you're only going to do one that day, please follow up first, because you've invested the time to get to that point. So Deb, I'm curious, what is your average right now on your listing side commission? How are you doing at holding the line on commission?
I'm a freak. I am that reformed person. You know how, like, the smoker hates smokers? I was the world's biggest commission cutter.
I remember those days.
And
not because you were afraid, you wanted to help them.
Well, I came out of a teaching background where we got paid on one listing what we got for the whole year. So when I got paid that kind of money, I thought, well, I better give some of it back, because I shouldn't take that much. And literally, people would ask me on a listing appointment, and what is your commission? And I would say, 7, 6, 5. I mean, if they said nothing, I was down to 4, and I was okay with that. But once I learned not to do that, and I learned not only for myself, but when I do it, I hurt everybody else in my marketplace. So, I am a freak. I don't cut commissions. I actually charge more than what the market charges. And if I get a ton of pushback, I mean, I always say to them, you know, I charge 6 1/4. Our marketplace in general is probably a little bit lower than that. I say I charge 6 1/4. And most people, if you have a strong listing presentation, they don't even ask. If you have a weak, so I'm always like when they say, and what do you charge for commission? I'm like, shoot, wasn't strong this time. But they won't ask if it's strong. And then I say it's 6 1/4. I said, you probably heard from some other people it's a little bit less. Well, yeah, I mean, they're like at 5. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. I said, now I do have ways that you can get that commission down. And I used to say, if I sell your home myself, I'll charge you, I took 0.5% off, 5 3/4. If you recommend anybody to me during the listing process and I either sell them a home or list their home, I'll give you 0.5% off. And I also said, if you buy another home from me, I'll take 0.5% off. What I've changed as of September 1, it's going to be 1/4%. Why do I give away a bigger share? That's foolish. And you notice the only way I'm doing that is if I get another transaction in return.
During the course of the relationship. Yes, and it's all during the course.
One time somebody said to me, well, I gave you a referral. Well, yeah, but they couldn't list with me. They had to list with someone else. They said, well, I still want the discount. You know, unfortunately, this is a business.
So before I jump over to John, because I think he has something to share, great listing presentation. I know you list a lot of past clients in Center of Influence. So you still do the full listing presentation with them?
Well, if I don't have to, I don't. But, you know, sometimes they're just come list me, you know, what is my house worth, and we'll sign it up. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And always do that pre-qual. If you don't do that pre-qual, you're shocked sometimes. I remember one time Cindy's sitting out here. I remember one time it was a past client and I was positive, you know, it's only me, I'll get this listed. I didn't do the pre-qual. And when I got there, they said, well, we've talked to Cindy Forehead and we really like Cindy. So I learned, Cindy, you taught me a valuable lesson. Always do that pre-qual.
So John, you have something to share.
So I think you have it dialed in, and you've been doing it a long time. Early on, what I did is I did a platinum, gold, and silver listing program, and it's on a printed card, and I give it to them and just say, which one do you want? And since I did that, nobody ever questions commission, and they do either 5.6, 5.8, or 6.1, and with the 6.1 they get 2 hours of handyman service, they get 2 hours of house cleaning, they get professional photos, and so that, it's a check mark, and of course the check marks get longer in the platinum box, and halfway in the gold, and then less on the silver. But since I started doing that, I never get questioned on commission anymore.
And Denver's very competitive on commission, probably a little more so than here, almost on par with Orange County and LA.
We went from 12,000 agents to 25 in 5 years.
Right. And so Chuck, do you fear the commission bottom feeding, flat rate, discount, cut rate? How many other bad words can we say? Do you fear them at all?
No, I really don't at all. So I stay, just like everyone else, I stay very tight on my commission. If anything, it goes up in most cases. So if you're a vacant property, we're going to charge you a little bit extra. So no, I don't fear them at all. I have a little bit different mentality. Obviously, I still nurture my sphere, my past clients. A lot of my business is past clients. But on the expireds and that other stuff, to me, it's just a number. And if I'm not the right agent for you, and yes, somebody may go do it for 4%, but I can't give you, if somebody's willing to give away 1/3 of their money, how much money are they going to really give away of yours? So to me, it's a very slippery slope when you start cutting commissions, and so we just don't do it.
And I think we have to give the consumer a little bit of credit. They're pretty smart. Everyone realizes that you don't get something for nothing. I read something the other day that 70% of consumers, if they see value in any product or service, they will pay more. And 30% will not. they're going to buy their clothes at Walmart knowing they wash them once and they fall apart, but that's just who they are. And ladies, the example they used is they took a pair of Chanel sunglasses and took the logo off, took them into a room and said, what would you pay? Then they took the identical glasses with the logo, different color, took them in the room and said, what would you pay? We were willing to pay 400% more. 400% more for a pair of sunglasses. So I hear that every time I travel around. Thank you guys. I haven't heard it once here today. What about purple bricks? What about this one? What about that one? And the reality is they always kind of, they're down there somewhere and they disappear as soon as the market gets a bit tougher. So any thoughts you guys would add about that, about these overcoming even just your own fear of this type of company?
I think if you get on your MLS and you pull stats on that company, it's very clear their stats are not going to measure up to yours. And if you're good with technology, you can make those stats say anything you want.
Maybe that's the class later tonight after a cocktail.
I mean, if you can look in their particular subdivision and say,
Sure.
Look, in your subdivision, I've sold 3% higher price and 20 days faster than the competition. If the stats for that subdivision don't look that great, then maybe you expand it out to the quadrant of the city and until your stats look better. But you can figure out a way to make the stats look better, right? So you just present that.
Well, and I think you just hit on something. What do they want most? They want more money, right? So if you're going into a listing presentation, of course they expect good service, but if you're talking about service, they might give up service to save money or net more money. So I think the point that you just made is really important, Victor. I know we talk to our clients a lot about tracking their average list to sales price compared to the competitor to be able to prove that you do sell those homes for a higher value. Deb, anything you want to add?
I was just going to say, we were talking yesterday. I remember when I took a listing that was way higher than what our market is, and I called Maxine Gellens, who's with Berkshire and La Jolla, and I said, what do you do when you get a listing that's so much higher than the rest of the market? What do you do for commission? And she said, just remember, Deb, it's harder to sell a home that is way out of the price than it is to sell the average in your market. So you don't charge less, you charge more. And he said yesterday, we were talking about his $56 million home. Is that what, 56?
It's 58 million.
58, sorry. I see I'm price cutting already. But he said he's charging 10%.
A little correction on that. 8%. 8%.
I thought you said 10.
I did.
Really impressed
So
with the
just to elaborate, I did go in on this presentation. It was I prospected him. He was an expired. On my, I think, 11th call, his assistant finally called me back and said, hey, you're a persistent son of a gun. We want to talk to you. And so I said, great. And met with him, took 2 meetings to talk about commissions. The second meeting, we started talking numbers, and he went on this spiel about, hey, I pay 5%, yada, yada, yada. And then he finally was quiet, and I said, he's like, what's your commission? I said, 10%. Never said another word. Looked at me like I was an alien, went into kind of our value add. He's like, I won't do 10, I'll do 8. I said, okay, sold. We'll take that. And I wanted to get 8 anyway, so kind of worked out.
And that is, how much is that listing?
That'll be $58 million, so if anyone has a buyer that wants to spend some money.
And what is the average price in your town again?
Nowhere close to that.
Yeah, so that's like the town.
Yeah, it's going to be a long shot, so we'll see what happens there. So we need Amazon to come to Atlanta or something like that.
Yeah, but that's a whole other subject about how sometimes you take those because just the PR.
And that was my
having
strategy around it.
Yeah,
that
whole strategy.
I would love for it to sell, but
Okay.
the reality is the additional business ad.
All right, so guys, that one excited you, right? The selling the town, the big commission. So let me ask you each to share, and then I think they're going to have a lot of questions for you, so I want to be sure we allow plenty of time for that. You mentioned selling the value or your value proposition. There's a lot of competition in all of the markets we all work in. Why would I choose you? What do you sell that's special about you?
I mean, for me, a lot of my story and what Deb was saying is if you have the strong presentation and the experience, which a lot of these people in this room do have, you have that much education. You have that much more deal knowledge than most of the average people out there. So, yes, I don't have experience experience selling a $50 million transaction, but I have a ton of deal knowledge, and so I know how to navigate deals, and I know what it takes to get things done. And so just kind of really leveraging my past experiences and showing the value add versus one of the discount brokers or somebody else that's out there. So it's interesting. There's not a whole lot of tangible stuff that I put as a deliverable. It's
Okay.
more the trusting and the confidence, I feel, than anything. So it's more the presentation and the deliverable, and I don't get a lot of pushback on it. So
Deb, have you noticed, and Cindy, that in the higher end, a lot of it is the proactive marketing, like, yes, there's all the stuff you do, but emphasizing those proactive activities plus your wealth of connections. So how do you differentiate yourself, Deb, other than you
First
sold
of all, I want to
thousands
say,
of homes?
this is the first time I've ever been on a panel with all men. Usually I'm on a panel with all women, and we're all talking over each other.
Yes.
And lots of
They're
wild
very
energy.
calm, right?
They're very calm.
Yes.
Kind of intimidating and very like data-based
Yes.
and stuff. So I'm in awe. So I'm just going to say ditto to what he said on that one, especially if Vince is going to make me
Okay,
talk later.
talk later,
So,
okay?
Next.
Vince, Victor, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just what you guys are saying. I think we'd all agree that the best way to overcome an objection or pricing objection is by having such a compelling presentation that you disarm them before it even happens. I think the biggest danger is when you wait till the end, if you haven't given them the full value of what you do, you haven't answered all of their questions, which of course, part of that would be asking all the right questions in the beginning before you begin your presentation so you can customize it to what they really want and need. But I think that, but anticipating all of their objections up front, having solid questions up front before you share about anything is going to be crucial to it. But if you answer all their objections in that presentation, you're not going to have a lot of pushback. Now, you might have somebody that asks you to cut just because they need to or they want to
Well,
make sure.
I think they think they should ask,
Yeah.
right? I think you go to a garage sale, you see a great item, you really want it, it's a good deal, but you feel like you should say,
Right.
is this your best price? And they say yes, and you say, okay, fine, and you pay the money, right? I think they feel, to be a wise consumer, they need to ask.
To your point, at a garage sale about 20 years ago, we had a wedding gift that we sold, and it was like a crystal vase that we had for $5. I couldn't sell it for more than $3. So it's kind of like that same idea. If that mentality is there, it's pervasive. It's like, it's a $50 crystal vase or whatever, right? So, but that's the idea. That's some of the mentality. But I think, again, if you circle them back to what they want, if you circle them back to your net, if you circle them back to how you negotiate and you're going to hold the line on that commission, if you've got a better marketing plan that's going to get you in a multiple offer situation perhaps and drive that property up, and you can at least show that you have a strategy for that. Doesn't mean you're promising that's going to happen. But if you can anticipate, where's every little angle that I can do something different, and then you show your MLS statistics of your personal versus versus the general MLS, that's huge because you guys are way better, as Chuck said earlier, way better than the average agent out there. So you guys might be at 98%, 99%, and your average MLS will be at like 92. So you can argue right there that you're going to sell on average statistically for 8% higher or 7% higher than any other agent that's out there.
So on that thought, your reviews, are you all doing a pretty good job collecting your reviews from your clients? Yes, no? Okay, work hard on it. I'll give you a couple of really quick tips. Make it easy for them, right? So at the end of the transaction, whatever you're doing, if it's, let's say it's your Zillow reviews, you get them on the phone, you say, thank you very much, I'd really appreciate if you do this for me, and I'll have everything ready. By the way, I know you're busy, would you mind giving me a quote? I'd be happy to type it for you, send it along with the review. All you have to do is, click, 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 and it's good to go. And you can even prompt them what to say. Would you maybe mention something about the fact that we sold the home $50,000 over where you thought the market would be? Or the multiple bids and the tough negotiations. In other words, you can tweak that script a little to get them to say things that are true, of course, but that when you take those reviews in now on a listing appointment and you can say, more money, more money, more money, more money. Now, you guys have all met the magical Alan Dalton, right? Alan's a great guy. He's coming in this afternoon, I think at 4 o'clock, so he'll be here tomorrow. Alan, worked with me very closely on my coaching faculty, and one of the things he said to me that I will not forget, and it made such a great point, he said, if you go to the website of a major, sophisticated, powerful law firm, what do they talk about there? Experience, expertise, and results. But if you go to the website of most successful real estate agents, what do they talk about? Service, service, service. Nothing wrong with service, but I want you to start thinking about how am I going to prove and quantify the experience, expertise, and the results. And your reviews are one of your best ways to do that. So, anything you'd like to add?
I think when consumers are upset or they're not happy, one of two things happens. Expectations weren't met or there were surprises. So when I sit down with clients that I don't know that well, that I have to win the business, I tell them in the beginning, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to tell you the truth. We can be friends after, but right now I'm your realtor, and I may tell you things you don't want to hear. And he talked about the process. You might get a buyer for your house, but are you going to get it closed? So I explain the process for them: inspection objection, appraisal, loan objection, so they know every hurdle we have to get through and what they can expect through that process. And they all think their house is the house, and they can't, they get that inspection report and they can't believe there's that many things wrong with it. So if you give them that heads up that this is what's going to happen, they expect it, and it doesn't become a big emotional thing for them. On reviews, I write them for them. I just write it and send it to them,
Good
and
job.
I say, feel free to edit. I just thought this might save you some time.
This is what I heard you say.
But I tailor it to their actual
Good job.
situation. They never edit it. They just cut and paste and they're
Yes.
done. So I write it for them. So.
And quick tip on that, once you send that all over for them to do their little click, 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 the same day you send that, put a thank you note in the mail with a $5 Starbucks card. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the review for me. You don't wait until they do it. You mail it the same day. Odds are they don't do this right away. They get your card, theory of reciprocity. They feel guilty. They go in and they do the review. If they don't do the review, at least follow up one additional time at least. Then you decide how far from there. Probably wouldn't keep nagging them, but most of them will do it. All right, so you brought up something you made me think of. Greedy sellers. Any of you have any of those? Right? Greedy sellers. So they want a crazy price. Everybody's going in there telling them they can get that price. They want maybe to cut commission. They don't want to do any work. I mean, they are the vigilante seller from you know where. So anyone have a strategy for how you handle them?
I usually listen to what they say, and then I just real calmly say, I'm going to ask for permission to be brutally honest with you. And they always, what do they always say? Yeah, of course, that's why you're here. I want you to be honest with me. Great. Then the prices that you were told are not prices that are going to get your home sold. So we can waste our time with those prices, or we can price it right and get it sold. It's really up to you. What would you like to do? And 99% of the time, they may go a little higher. See, I like his negotiating thing with them. They may go a little higher, but that's probably the price you wanted it at.
Okay.
Anyway. So just ask for permission to be brutally honest.
And then what I'm hearing you talk about, John, is prepping them for the physical inspections, the buyer requests, the things that will happen in the transaction, so they're not surprised, right?
We just had one. They thought it was worth $550 to $600, and when I did my CMA, it was $450. And I mean, it was blatantly obvious. There was nothing in the neighborhood that ever sold for more than $450, and they were a half block off I-25. So we had to actually shut the windows to hear each other in the house. But by the time time I got done, they were like, yeah, I guess we're good with that value. And I think if you're just confident in yourself, if you believe in your presentation and the way you present it, they're going to believe in you. And I think that's the hardest thing for new agents, like she said, about like feeling guilty about earning that much money, and then, you know, learning the market and believing that you're an expert in your trade. Once you believe it, everybody else will believe it.
You know, I think one of the best commission objection handlers, too, is to remind them, you're not paying me a dime today. You know, when you think about it, commission is really a marketing tool. It's a carrot. So it incentivizes me to work overtime to invest the amount of money you're going to have to invest in that property. It incentivizes me to do that to attract the best quality and caliber buyer agents to the property. And at the end, you're still the boss. If you're not satisfied with an offer, you don't accept it. So why wouldn't you want to hire the best when it doesn't cost you a dime today to do so? Right? See, again, just don't get freaked out when they bring it up, because they just really think they need to ask. I think our friends, our family members would probably ask. I think I saw a hand in the back. Sir, go ahead and shout it out loud, and I'll repeat it for those standing. All right.
I have something with a greedy seller. I have one of my investors. He buys his houses and flips them. But the problem I have with him is he buys houses for $100,000 and puts them $75,000, sometimes $100,000 over everything in the area.
Okay.
5 houses in a row, he did that, and they sold. So he comes to me this time, buys another house, and he is $70,000 higher than the last one sold. And I put it on the market, and I got the contract, and he's ready to do it again. So in a market like we have right now, how do I kind of feel about something that is extravagant? It's hands down, blows everything in the market open.
Okay.
But the market is not saying you should get there.
Got it. Well, so I think he's a pretty smart seller. But I think to your point, though, which is really valid, in a volatile market, do we actually know for sure exactly what that house will sell for? Haven't you guys had some where you thought, I priced it dead on, it doesn't go? Or I priced it too high and it goes right away? But I think a question for the panel might be, do you take overpriced listings ever? And if so, what would be your standards of when you make a decision to turn it down or to take it? So John, do you want to start us off?
If it's substantially overpriced, I walk away. I don't ever take it.
Give us a percentage. Is that 5, 10%? What is your kind of your ratio? You're a numbers guy. 5% over?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tell them, I price it where it needs to be. The market's the most honest thing in the world. If it's worth $25,000 more, the market will tell us that. However, I meet every appraiser because I need that house to appraise. If I've got 5 offers over list price, I can convince that appraiser that house is worth more. If I price it $25,000 over and I get 1 offer, and then that appraiser has to justify that with comps and he can't do it, then we're not going to appraise anyway, so what does it matter? So it's better to price that market and let the market take it up so you can substantiate the appraisal with the appraiser.
So quick question, how many of you guys are meeting your appraisers right now? Yeah, it's helping, right? We got away from that for a while, and now I really see that surging back and making a difference. Victor, any thought that you'd add a standard for when you would advise a client it's okay to take an overpriced listing? So John's saying 5%,
They're all
maybe
okay. They're
5%.
all a little different, but let's just say 5% roughly
Right.
is about that. Some will take a little bit less, and some will take a little more. But let's say 5. But I think what you just said is right on. It's just that it's about testing the market and staying in alignment with the seller as best as you can. So after we've talked, Deb, about can I be brutally honest with you, that starts the conversation for at least a reality check. And why is it important to have that price? Is it just you're a pig? I mean, that's kind of what it is. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's it's just gluttony. It's gluttony, right? It's I want $250,000 more than it's worth, and it's on you. Wait a second, that doesn't make any sense, right? But rather than arguing the point, the stats are the stats. They are what they say, and the market is what's going to determine the price. So I wouldn't get into a big contest with the seller on price. To stay in alignment with them, say, okay, so we're looking at $50,000 over the market, or whatever we're looking at, right? If that's what we're looking at, we can talk about the retail pricing, testing the market at the highest price that the market may support, and may is the operative word in that. And then and you saw the marketing, because this is when you've crushed it with marketing and they know you're going to do a great job and you're turning over every stone, and you're online, you're offline, you're everywhere. So they're convinced that you're the guy or the gal to market this property, so that's not really the question. Now it's coming down to price. Well, at that point, as long as you're in alignment with them, you can say, we can test this price, but let's talk about this. I'm going to fully employ a full marketing arsenal for you. I'm going to spend a lot of money, I'm going to spend a lot of time. Here's what I'm going to do to make this thing sold. If it doesn't sell within 2 weeks, we either do not get the showings or we do not get an offer. The market has spoken and we overshot. So let's talk about what we're going to do in 2 weeks, and let's determine that together right now in advance in writing. And then you get your built-in price
and just be
reduction.
careful not to say, we'll try it, right? Which you didn't hear Victor say, we'll try it. It's real proactive, that you're going to be their champion, you're going to fight for them, and yet we are now business partners. By the way, guys, I do have a script. Brooke, if you'll remind me, I have a script for, which Victor was referring to, once that listing is taken and you're now at the table, the listing's back in your hand, having that price reduction conversation right there at the table. So I'll be happy to give that to you to send out. So Deb, so from a business decision, a business point of view, maybe you have your standard of it's 5% over. I've been honest with them and I've set the stage. What other criteria would you look at before you would take an overpriced listing?
You know, I'm probably going to take them all. I really am. But I'm going to make it very clear, yes, we're going to work together, and I always say, I'm going to do everything I can to get your price, because remember, I get paid based on that sales price,
Right.
so I want it high too. I also want to be known as the agent that always sells things too high. I never want to be known as the agent that underprices everything. So I always tell them that, so they know I'm working for them, but then I do exactly what he says. I said, we'll take it at your price, and I'll do everything I can. But in 7 showings or 21 days, we agree right now that we'll go to the price that I've suggested. And we put it right in the agreement, so I don't have to go back and ask for that price reduction. The only thing I will say is sometimes after 21 days, they'll call you up and go, well, no, I still need more time.
Right.
Occasionally that will happen, but you've still saved yourself that call in most cases, so just have it right in.
But I'm glad
the
you
agreement.
said you're going to take them all. In a low inventory market, how many are you guys going to walk away from? Not many, right? And I used to look at it, Deb, I remember the last severe down cycle we had, I got real tough on price and I lost. Instead of a 98% ratio taken, it went down to 48. So I thought, what's my standard? Was 5%. Are they motivated? Maybe not super motivated today, but there's a motivation happening. Is it not hideous? Because you know, some of them, if they back to the prison and face the freeway and, you know, have you know what living next door, maybe you don't want it. But for the most part, you're going to go down that list and say, and I think the really important one is, can I put up with them for a period of time? Because I just wrote an email on the plane to go out to our clients this week. Do you have a seller you need to fire? And I don't say that lightly, but you guys all know if there's someone that is making you, and I had the great session today, but they make you just physically ill and you cannot manage any other business because they are consuming every thought, then that's not one you should take.
All of my listings are for 6 months, but it says right on there, you or I can cancel on
Great.
the 30th of each month. And if they're ruining the entire group and my day and everything, I
Yeah,
will.
and it's rare. Would you say it's not even maybe one or two a year?
I'd say maybe one a year.
Because we do have to remember, this is a very stressful situation for sellers. They're going to behave a little badly sometimes. Go ahead, comment for us, please.
Here, I'll thanks, sorry to hijack, Chuck. All right, so we've done all these things, but we've added a little bit more to it this year, and it's really worked for my team, so I wanted to share it with everybody. So we will insert MLS change form in the listing agreement,
Great
have that
idea.
discussion right there, and we go, my price, I'm market expert, your price, but as a consumer, I resonate with you, because when I price my own real estate, my flips, I start too high. We all got to test it, right? We want to sleep at night. So I go, I get it, man. I'm an expert. Here's the price, yours. MLS change form, and we will put that a percentage. Okay, you want $550, I'm saying $499. That's 5%. We will reduce every Monday $10,000 or 1% until we get to my price. So we're going to play in between. And then what you sprinkle on top of that to really convince them to do it, you say, look, we can all agree everyone shops online today, right? Yes, everyone agrees, your consumers agree. Okay, we're going to provide analytics. This is when you get into all your photo tour software and stuff that you can show, 3,000 clicks, no live showings.
Right.
That means we're overpriced. And then you say, and I know if this seller's over the age of 50, sorry, most of the times they're going to say, yeah, but if I lower every 7 days, it shows I'm desperate. Say, no. The way we sell real estate is all changed. Analytics and websites will feature you for price reductions, right? They're going to move you up search results. They're going to put a little
Great
red
point,
arrow
yeah.
that says price reduced. You're going to show up on top of feeds, blah, 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 blah. Some people go, oh, okay, small increments until we get to your price.
Right.
And I found that's an easier way to sell it than, all right, we started at $550. In 21 days, we're going to slash it to mine. And then they're like, I might have left 50, 40, 30 on the table.
Right.
We have them all sign that at the listing agreement. And then every Monday, we don't even have the discussion. We just lower 1%.
It's just easier. Yeah, thank you
We do it
so
every
much
Monday
for
morning.
sharing
Excellent.
that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
So
That's
Chuck,
awesome.
well, let's let Chuck have the last word because I know we're out of time, I think. Go right ahead, sir.
What was my last word? Sorry.
Well, your last word was, any words you want to say, and do you ever take over price listings?
Overpriced listings. No, I mean, everyone's experienced it. It becomes a pain in your butt right away. I have one right now. He's a good client of mine. He's referred a lot of people. He's actually a commercial broker, but they don't price things. And so he
Right.
sells a huge apartment complexes, and he's like, I don't put a price on it. And I'm like, it's not that way. And we went back and forth. And I was like, finally, all right. He's like, I don't care if it sells in a year. I just don't want it to sell in a day. Okay, we'll take it at this price. Just want you to understand, it really is going to sell at $525, not the $575 number you picked. 2 months later, why is my house sold? I got to hurry up. Now this motivation has changed, but it's like, look, told you so. And it's just painful to deal with that stuff. So we
Right.
try to stay away from it.
I have one quick question.
Story real quick.
Hold on, I think we have one question. Do you want to do the question first?
I'm sorry. I'm shocked. Why do you guys go to the appraisal and meet the appraiser? I do an appraisal packet, but I saw a lot of hands go up for that they go to the appraisal.
To persuade and win them. When I first got into real estate, I was younger. Then my broker said, wear a tight skirt and go meet the appraiser. It's that same theory that they are humans and they are influenced by a professional, and the nuances that they won't know about the property that you will be able to share, right? And help them justify it. Do you guys all meet your appraisers? Do you have someone on the team? Sometimes, depending on the property.
I'm an appraiser, so I know how it works.
Okay, cool. Okay. So, talk to them about it, because it is something I'm seeing really emerging again, and it does appear to be working. So you have a story.
Well, it's not really a story that kind of fits in here. This should have been in that mental health part you had. Mike Ferry asked a whole group of us to talk about the one reason you should use coaching. So this is a little different from that. But I just said, every single one of us is at a different place in this room. And some of us are dealing with tremendous, horrible things in their lives. When those kind of things happen to you in your life, you have got to go just on automatic. So I want you to know what happens when you take a listing. I want you to know what happens when they ask for price reductions. I want this to be so ingrained in you that when those bad things happen to you, and if they haven't happened to you yet, I guarantee they will happen to you someday. You've got to be able to compartmentalize that in your life and just move forward. My husband had a double lung transplant, and we had to move to St. Louis for 5 months, and we could not tell anyone, even Vince didn't know, that I was gone. I was in a city where I knew no one, and worried that he was probably not going to make it. Those are scary kind of things. But I bet if I ask all of you out there to tell us something that you've had to deal with and overcome, we would all be crying in this room, because there are things that we will all have to deal with in our lives and in our careers. So don't beat yourself up when those kind of things happen. Just know that that's part of life, and do everything you can to just compartmentalize your life and move forward. So it wasn't anything
thank you.
amazing, but it was just, don't beat yourself up, go forward, and know what you're doing, and know it like a professional.
So Deb, on that last thought about don't beat yourself up, sometimes when you're the doctor, the patient dies. Sometimes you will take these listings and you will not get them sold.
Yeah.
And you will do everything in your power. There is nothing more that you can do. They aren't going to lower the price. You've done your best. You have to be unattached to that outcome, because right now it's hot market. Get as many listings as you can. That's great. As the market shifts, when they take longer to sell, or you work in these higher price points, you can become very, very stressed. And what may happen is you'll start to avoid taking listings because you have to manage the sellers. Listing agents rule the world. You have to take those listings and you have to manage those seller expectations, and know that when the patient dies, the doctor goes golfing, because he has to mentally live to fight another day to help other patients, right? So these are awesome agents. Go ahead and...
The other thing I would say to that is just know that sometimes your business is your lifeline. It truly is your life preserver, because it allows you to have some control in some part of your life. So embrace your business, enjoy your business, but don't
And love
kill
your
yourself.
sellers, because they're just nervous, scared, and, as we know, a little bit greedy, right? But thank you, panel, so much. Guys, time for a quick break.